Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular town council meeting for Tuesday, June 12th, 2018. Please rise for a moment of silence. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Fishbein.
Here.
Laffin.
Here.
Letourneau.
Here.
Marone.
Here.
Morgenstein. Here. Shortell.
Here.
Testa. Zandri. And Chairman Savoni.
Here. Councilor Zandri did advise me that he has a work obligation that will preclude him from attending. On to item 3, the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve and accept consent agenda items A through P.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda passes. Item 4, there were no items removed from the consent agenda. Item 5, public question and answer is open. Any questions, comments from the public? There being none, it's a good thing we set the public hearing for 6:30. All right, on to the public hearing for the Neighborhood Assistance Program. I will just read the mayor's letter to the council. In order to complete the requirements set by the state, attached is a resolution authorizing the mayor's office to submit neighborhood assistance applications to the Department of Revenue Services and the summary list of neighborhood assistance programs for 2018. It is requested that these documents be forwarded to the town council for its consideration after the June 12th public hearing on neighborhood assistance. This is a state program whereby businesses in town that pay the corporate tax to the state can elect to make contributions to the programs on the list. It's the third last page of our document for item 7. They can make these contributions and receive credit towards their state tax, corporate state tax payments. The programs are the Columbus House, Wallingford Emergency Shelter Services is seeking a grant of $120,000. The First Congregational Church of Wallingford is seeking an HVAC green retrofit for $75,000. Gaylord Hospital for patient programs and services, $150,000. Habitat for Humanity of Greater New Haven, Habitat Home Building, New Haven, $150,000. The Elbrick Girls and Boys Club for youth development in the amount of $150,000. Mayor, do you have anything to add for the benefit of the public hearing?
Not at this point.
Thank you. All right, well, the public hearing is open. Is there any comment or question from the public about the program? There being none, I close the public hearing. Move on to item 7. Mr. Vice Chairman.
I move we approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to submit neighborhood assistance applications to the Department of Revenue Services and the summary list on the neighborhood assistance programs for 2018.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the council. Any questions or comments from the public, even though we already had a public hearing? No. All right, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Letourneau,
Yes.
Marone,
Yes.
Morgenstein,
Yes.
Shortell,
Yes.
Chairman Cervoni.
Yes.
The resolution passes.
Yes, it did. Thank you. On to item 8, Councilor Shortell's request for an update and discussion on the Conservation Commission activities. Do we have media with this?
Thanks.
Oh, next.
I'm going to spend about 5 minutes first. Yes, I can see Vinnie's head right over the machine.
I may move.
No, your head isn't in the way of the screen.
Oh, okay.
The list used to be longer.
Okay. My name is Mary Heffernan. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission, and I thank the councilors for letting us come tonight. We have some other commissioners here tonight, and also Erin O'Hare, who's our liaison to the town. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes, and then we'll get on to the PowerPoint. The Connecticut state statutes stipulate that any town, city, or borough may establish a conservation commission for the development, conservation, supervision, and regulation of natural resources, including water resources, within its territorial boundaries. Although there had been earlier versions of such a commission in Wallingford, Mayor William Dickinson established the commission as it exists today in 1997. Having been a member of the Wallingford Land Trust in its early years and a lifelong resident of Wallingford, the mayor was keenly aware of the farms, beautiful vistas, rivers, streams, and wide open areas in our town that many felt were part of our way of life. He was also at that time mayor during a time when we had a governor who believed firmly in preserving open space for future generations. And the state had frequent opportunities for grant money to help in the purchase of suitable properties. Both the mayor and the governor held strongly to the belief that once open space property is gone, it's gone. The mayor appointed 7 commissioners, and they began their work by writing an open space plan for the town. Those were the golden years of the economy and the Conservation Commission, and we added many properties to our treasury of open space for almost a decade. At that time, the main role for commission members was to keep our eyes open for opportunities to purchase land, to examine those properties carefully, then to recommend them to the mayor and the town council for purchase. We looked for parcels adjacent to existing publicly owned space, open spaces adjacent to major water resources, properties that would help to establish greenway corridors, properties that would help improve and protect trail-based recreational opportunities, and properties that provided unique habitats worth protecting. During the years that have ensued since 2007, the economy has not been our friend, and the town has been less able to purchase open space. The roles of the commissioners have evolved and gotten more complicated. There's a fair amount of open space in Wallingford, including many still active farms, 3 golf clubs, cemeteries, school playgrounds, town parks, open space parcels and developments, and the holdings of the Wallingford Land Trust, a private, nonprofit organization not to be confused with town open space properties. The lands that are overseen by our commission total approximately 2,100 acres, which includes 430 acres in the farmland lease program. The commission oversees the leasing of these 36 fields to local farmers. Farmers bid on the leasing of these properties in 5-year cycles and use them for hay, vegetables, cattle, and we even have a maple syrup property. We specify the terms of these leases and keep an eye on them to see that the farmers are good stewards of our properties. Their work on these properties maintains vistas and habitats in our town and keeps them from reverting to brush or forest, and the inexpensive leases are a bargain for the farmers, who we feel it is very important to support. Several of our other properties have trail systems. In 2009, we went to the mayor and the town council and asked for an ordinance to change the number of commissioners from 7 to 9 so that we had more members to help with the upkeep of the properties. This request was granted. We receive a great deal of support from the Parks and Recreation Department and Commission and the Public Works Department, and I'm glad I put this in here since I see they're all here tonight. But they are already spread thin, and a lot of work falls on the volunteers on our commission. In 2011, we formed a subcommittee of volunteers, the Stewards of Tyler Mill. This group takes great care of the day-to-day work that is done in the approximately 1,000-acre Tyler Mill Preserve, where there are 15+ miles of trails. The stewards keep the trails cleared, the trash picked up, are the friendly face of knowledge about the preserve to visitors, and report to the police incidents of dumping or unacceptable behavior in our open space. In 2012, following what was to be the beginning of a new age of winter and rainstorms, we went to the mayor and risk manager and formed a policy and training procedure so that trained commissioners and stewards could do chainsaw work on the trails to clear them of storm blowdowns and widowmakers. We have put in many, many hours doing this work that can't fall to Public Works, and the town doesn't have the money to hire it out. In 2014, we responded to a request from the fire department, who had on several occasions spent time in Tyler Mill looking for injured mountain bicyclists who did not know where they were. Our Trails Committee spent a great deal of time that summer covering all 15 miles of trails with emergency number signs every 600 feet along the trail. Signs on both sides of each tree, carrying a ladder, nails, and signs, and a GPS to map where the numbers are. The map of the signage and the GPS locations of the signs have been provided to the police and fire departments. So as you can see, there's never a shortage of things to keep us busy, and the microburst in May has added a whole new level of work for both the commissioners and stewards, as well as the town departments. I hope many of you have had opportunity to visit some of our open space properties, and now I'd like to show some photographs that will maybe entice you if you haven't. Lights. These are the boundary markers on our open space properties. And if you see a triangle like that and it says WLT on it, that is Wallingford Land Trust property, not Town of Wallingford. This is the vision statement of the Conservation Commission. Town of Wallingford is blessed with open space resources of natural, historical, and cultural significance. Wallingford will protect and preserve these remaining open space resources to maintain their symbolic, economic, ecological, recreational, educational, and aesthetic significance for future generations. This effort ensures that Wallingford residents will continue to enjoy a quality of life compatible with the character of the town. So these are the founders of the feast. Picture taken just a couple of years ago. Jeff Borney and Mayor Dickinson. When he reformed the commission, he asked Jeff Borney to spearhead things and be the chair of the commission. And a lot of the properties we bought during those good years were through grants that Don Rowe secured for us. Tyler Mill Preserve is the big one, almost 1,000 acres. You can see it there in green in the middle of the map. It looks a little different now than when I took these photographs, since the microburst. But it's a beautiful piece of property with many different types of habitats on it. And the stewards are working very hard now to clear the trails in there. This is where the old mill was, the not-so-muddy river. There's an interpretive trail in there that people can take their children out on, and there's 25 points of interest and a booklet that goes along to talk about some of the history and the habitats. Wolf tree. This is one of my favorite things on the interpretive trail. The The farmers used to leave a tree in the middle of their fields to shade the cows. And the rest of the field, of course, had been cut down so they could have grass on it. And this was the lone wolf tree. Corduroy Trail. Lots of stone walls. The trails are all very well blazed. You'd have to work very hard to get lost in there. The stewards have built many footbridges over muddy areas and streams, and this is one of the farmland lease fields. It's in the middle of Tyler Mill. This was from the Record Journal. This is one of the things we really, really dislike, are ATVs. There's no motorized vehicle signs all over the place. They really tear up the trails. That's our trail map, available here in Town Hall, at the Public Library, and at the Parks and Recreation Department, and from the stewards if you're out on the trails. This is a group of students from the Kohler Environmental Center, working with Tom Petras, one of the commissioners, doing some wetland stuff. Now, this is a land trust property, but I put it in here just to show that, you know, they have some beautiful spots too. Bertini Park is part of Tyler Mill. Up at the top of the trails, there's some very nice views. The Land Trust dedicated a trail to Charlie Unansky, who had been a steadfast member for decades. This is a property that you have to go into Durham to access, but that's our access to it, and that's now a farmland lease field too. When we had our grand opening at Fresh Meadows, was it a week or two ago? On Trails Day, the first weekend of the month, these were two young boys that came on the hike, and they discovered a turtle beside the trail laying its eggs, which was a very exciting find for all of us. These trails are handicapped accessible, and we received a grant with the help of the Program Planning Office, and a lot of work was done on it by Erin O'Hare to make these trails accessible to wheelchairs. There's a glacial erratic over there, which is a big boulder that was moved here from, they think, Meriden Mountain during the glacial era. It's very impressive. We had an Eagle Scout that did a project over there, and that trail was completed by one of our commissioners, his daughter, as her Girl Scout Silver project a few years back. People fish here. If it's cold enough, they can skate in the winter. These are the open space signs that you'll see around town on the properties that the town owns. This is Ferguson Woods, which is off of Dibble Edge Road. A lovely property that came to us with trails on it already because the family that owned it had managed the forest and had trails. That was an open space day. After we purchased that property, we took people out on a hike. We had another open space day on one of the farmland lease fields in 2007, so we could show people what that was all about. A lot of people are not aware of that program. There we are at Bertini Park on open space day. Petrossi Field, which is off of East Center Street. This is part of the property where the linear trail now goes. I just liked this picture of the fall foliage at Harrison Park. It was beautiful that year, as it usually is. Loughbury Park, again, you get some great views. This is a land trust property. With a waterfall in it. And an open space where they had a Trails Day event on the land trust property. Quinnipiac River, we don't own any of that, but it's beautiful open space. There was an eagle count day when this picture was taken. A lot of people are not aware that we have a national scenic trail that goes through Wallingford. The New England Trail goes from the shore in Guilford to Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire. And it goes through, I think there's about 6 miles of it through Wallingford. It's up on the ridge, it's beautiful. That's what their trailhead signs look like. That's a very bad picture of a coyote. Dragonfly. Lots of beautiful wildflowers, lots of not so beautiful things. We have bluebird boxes over on that Fresh Meadow property. That was a find. You don't see those very often. This is a species of concern, the eastern box turtle. One of my favorite spring wildflowers. Dame's rocket is an invasive species, but they're very pretty. They're in bloom all over the place right now. That's a red-winged blackbird. The frogs are the little things between the water and the mud. You can barely see them. One of our commissioners is always on the lookout for ones that he can take home and eat. This was in Loughbury Park. This was in the community garden. One of our commissioners has a garden plot there, and it hosted the killdeer's nest one year. It's a beauty that usually blooms in May. You don't see as many of them now as you did when I was a kid. Snakes right there in the middle can be hard to spot. One of the first signs of spring is the skunk cabbage. These are my favorites. Trillium, beautiful wildflower. We have a lot of those in Wallingford. Trout lily, there's tons of those. And these are my very favorite. I'm always on the lookout for eastern cottontails. I do have to say, I didn't take that picture here in Wallingford, but there are eagles here. It's a cardinal's nest. Mom on the nest. Dad bringing breakfast. And some newer photographs here. There's a lot of work to be done out there. Thank you. Scott, we're all set. So if anyone has any questions for any of the commissioners or anything you'd like to ask us?
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you to Councilor Shortell for placing this item on the agenda. Questions from the council? Councilor Fishbein?
Not really a question, but I found it interesting at the Fresh Meadows, we did Trails Day a few weeks ago, that Yale University is using that to do a project having to do with spiders and grasshoppers and the prey and predator aspect of that. And it was very interesting to see that not only serving the town of Wallingford, and it was very interesting that the hike, and I at least learned some stuff, and I just really enjoy those things. So
There's a lot of things to see out there, and there's been, I think Aaron may have talked to you about this at the Fresh Meadows hike, but there's other students that have come through the years and asked us if they could do various studies on properties, and we're willing to help as long as they're not doing any damage.
yeah, certainly, worthwhile for our citizens, and, certainly reaching out to other people utilizing it is a good thing. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yes, we can thank the commission for a lot of hard work over the years, and it continues. I do want to remind everyone, though, the lease fields are not open for public to walk through them. So,
You can
We have
walk
to-
around the edges.
right,
Not through.
but they're not open for public use. They are leased to the farmers, and so it's just a gentle reminder.
Thank you. Questions or comments from, Mr. Vice Chairman?
Can one of the commissioners say something?
Could you please come up to the microphone?
My name is Diane Lendler. I'm one of the commissioners. I've been a commissioner, I think, maybe 5, 6 years. I just want to say that this is one of the most difficult times that Tyler Mill has ever gone through. And for those of us who love Tyler Mill and work on it, it really has actually brought tears to our eyes and tears to people who love it and walk through it and hike through it and bike through it. And even though the stewards are working tremendously hard under the direction of Diane Saunders, who has worked daily for hours every single day, there are some parts that we cannot do by ourselves. We just can't do it. We don't have the equipment to do it. It is a monster thing. Anybody who wants to walk out there on the closed Tyler Mill, we would be happy to show you. You'd have to do a lot of climbing, up, down, over. But at some point, we will really be asking for help. We will desperately need it. Otherwise, Tyler Mill will not live, period. And that's the end.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chairman, did you have something?
Yeah, and maybe it piggybacks on those comments. And to anybody watching at home or the different groups that may be here, it's in different Cub Scouts and Boy Scout groups, and as you kind of showed, work with the Conservation Commission for different projects, and they're always looking for help. You have plenty of projects, I'm sure, that are more than fill up this year if you had the manpower for it. So just anybody that is looking for something to do like that, to reach out, and there are a lot of opportunities, as my children have participated in before.
Yeah, he's right about that. One of his son's Boy Cub Scout troop
Yeah.
helped us build one of those footbridges. And we're always happy to work with kids because we want them outside. We want them to know how special nature is, and they're going to be the stewards when we all get too old to do this.
And now Abby plays soccer on that field, and she brags that she was the first person to ever cross that bridge.
I remember
So
that day.
she just did that the other day again. It's
That's
every time we
funny.
see the bridge.
So that stayed with her. That's great.
Right.
Any questions or comments from the public? Mr. Morgenstein?
Good evening, Larry Morgenstein, South Main Street. This is a question to the commission. The sand plains has been very much in the news. Would the commission, who I know had a lot of interest in that, this would be your chance to speak to the council, educate them on the uniqueness of it. Would anybody on the commission care to speak to that about the sand plains?
Aaron, do you want to say something brief?
The sand plains that are being referenced. The sand plains they were left by a melting glacier.
If you could just remind us who you are for the record.
Sorry, Erin
Thank you.
O'Hare, environmental planner. The sand plains were left, they are a sand deposit left by a melting glacier 15,000 years ago. Used to stretch 15 miles through North Haven through Wallingford up to Meriden. About 15 miles long and about 1.5 miles wide. Over the years, they've been developed, of course. The sand plains were very easy to develop for industry. They were not good for farming, so they were kind of left alone by farmers. But over the years, they were developed until now. There's very little sand plain left, and there's only one sand barren left. A sand barren is a unique habitat. There's only one left in Connecticut, so that was the reference. There's also a dry acidic forest. There's 3 identified dry acidic forests in Connecticut. Both of those habitats are located on the Allnex property abutting Tully's Road. The Conservation Commission came out 2 years ago with a plea to save these endangered habitats. And there was a document initiative that they undertook, which is called the Wallingford Sand Plains Heritage Preserve Initiative. Laid out everything about the sand plains, their ecology, the natural history, the history with George Washington crossing them, and the writings he put in his journal, looking at this very peculiar habitat of sand, coming across this sand in the middle of the woods. So now it's up for, as was stated, it's in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a development proposal. And in perspective of the Conservation Commission would like to see it preserved, but it understands that it's private property. And that's where it is now.
Thank you. I just wanted to give them a chance to speak before the council. And just to add that value is not only always measured in monetary value. There's a value in preservation. There's a value in preserving. And as of yet, there's been no scientific evidence that says that this still isn't viable and that it couldn't be preserved. Yet here we are. And we're still in a position of whether that will be lost forever. Thank you.
Anything else from the public? There being none, Ms. Heffernan, I thank you very much for the presentation. I thank you and your entire commission for the hard work you do that's very important to the town.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
At this point, I'm going to be looking for a waiver of Rule 5 with respect to an item from Public Works.
Mr. Chairman, I move we waive Rule 5 to discuss and take possible action on a transfer in the amount of $60,000 to our Public Works overtime account.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of waiving Rule 5 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this item is now on the agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve a transfer in the amount of $60,000 to the Public Works overtime account to cover the unexpected overtime to clean up the storm damage from the microburst.
Second.
And to be clear, this is coming from the retirement sick leave account. Moved and seconded. Mr. McCully?
Good evening.
Mr. McCully, what's going on?
Well, it didn't snow. As we all know, we experienced a very harsh event in the town. The west side of town got spared. I would call it the southeast side of town got hit pretty hard. And Public Works is in the process of collecting brush, debris from the storm from residences. When we first responded to the storm, we were assisted by the electric division to keep roads open. And once we were able to mobilize and start the cleanup, it was announced. We did the west side of town first. That was the least affected. And that gave the residents in the east side of town more time to put out their debris from the storm. I would say right now we're 2/3 complete. Mr. Palermo, our foreman, may disagree, but we do have a lot of work ahead of us. We're dealing with not just picking up the brush is easy, but we have huge stumps, pieces of trees that were toppled to clean up. And it's ongoing. We're working 10-hour days and 8 hours on Saturdays.
So that's depleted some of your wage account and it's going to increase your obligation going forward?
Yes. It's when all staff are in to respond to this, it's 18 hours of overtime times 39 staff. It's around $30,000 a week.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Councilor Morgenstein?
Hi, Henry. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, you guys are really working hard. It was very early. I saw the trucks out, and they're working all day long. I just had a very simple question. Can I be helped to understand what the retirement sick leave account is? Where the money is coming from?
That would be, the money came from the personnel department, not my department. I wouldn't know that.
Okay, can anyone answer that? I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me. Retirees have sick leave, or is that two separate, should there be a comma? I don't know what that account is.
I believe these would be funds that would be for payment of someone who would be retiring, and they have money left. I mean, we estimate every year the payout for sick leave and retirement, because you do receive money for X number of days. You can accumulate, I think, up to 150, say, but you can be paid for 100 or 90 or whatever.
Okay, it wasn't clicking what that would be. So another very simple question. Obviously, this money needs to be spent. The guys are doing great work. Just something that I noticed today, so since I have you here, we're bringing a lot of the brush to the Garden Road property in these trucks. Is the brush being just brought whole, or are we going to be grinding it up, because you've got huge amounts of brush, and that property, I just hesitate to see that property become just a dumping ground of all this brush.
Yes, the plan is to grind up the debris that's there, and we did this in, I think it was Hurricane Andrew. I'm waiting for us to get near the end of the pickup, and we can have the engineering department estimate how many square yards are there, and we can put out a quick bid for that.
Okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because it needs to get out of the way first. Again, if you hadn't come tonight, I don't know that I would have, but.
The road is sealed off every night
Oh,
with the
yeah,
boulders
yeah,
so that we don't
yeah.
have people in there.
Again, doing a great job with a huge job, and your fellows, have really, everybody on your staff done a great job. We appreciate it.
I'll pass the word along, thank you.
Councilor Morone?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. McCully. Again, to echo what Councilor Morgenstein said, the department is doing a great job. They were out there right after the storm, really keeping the roads clear and stuff. It was very impressive. You mentioned it was about $30,000 a week in overtime expenses?
Yes,
So the storm was about 4 weeks ago, so,
the 15th of May.
so that's about 4 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, give or take. So that means, so in addition to the 60,000, we've spent 60,000 in overtime out of, or where did the rest of the overtime money come from? Is that our regular overtime account?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe I came for a transfer a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
$40,000.
So I guess my question then is to the mayor. The retirement sick leave fund, is it typically over budget by 60,000 at this time of year?
I can't answer that question. I don't know. That could be significant. One person could represent a large part of that. If I'm correct about the money representing funds paid to a person upon their retirement, that could be a sizable. That could be only two people or maybe less. So. It would vary depending upon every year how many retire, and we every year must come up with the money to be able to pay them.
Right, understood. That makes perfect sense. Typically, it would seem that we would take these items out of contingency because we set aside contingency just for this purpose. Why, in this instance, would we choose the retirement sick leave
I
fund?
believe the contingency is about zero. The general purpose contingency, last I heard, it only $12,000 in it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Fishbein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sort of along the same lines, I noticed that we were here 2 weeks ago and we were transferring $40,000 from the health insurance line. And that passed. So I'm just trying to, we knew going into the month that the health insurance was over budget, well, had this cushion in it, I would expect, before we did this. The retirement sick leave, I would think that we project, who we think is going to retire. Is that how that number's come up with?
I believe so. I mean, we need to be prepared, and so the personnel department would make an estimate.
And what is the retirement sick leave?
An individual retires is eligible to receive a certain number of sick days that were not taken. So it's one of the benefits of retirement, and I believe it can be up to 100 days, though different contracts have different numbers associated with them.
And do we know how much more is available in the retirement sick leave account? Because we're almost, it's what, 2 more weeks before the end of the year.
I would think the department would have a good idea on that, but I don't at this point.
If I may, I did discuss this item with Mr. Bose today, and I believe he indicated that before any money is moved out of this account, there's $80,000 or $90,000 in it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for.
Did you say before this was moved out?
Before this would be moved out, yes.
Yeah.
So I guess to Henry, I've spoken to Steve a bunch of times, and great job staying on top of this. Do we expect this to be the end of this, or are you going to be back here looking for more money? What do we project here?
Well, I'm hoping to get to the end of this fiscal year. I'll get my new money, as you said, in 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, I would hope that we'd be close to the end of this. Maybe we can cut back a little bit in the overtime.
So, we heard earlier from the Conservation Commission concerns about Tyler Mill, and I know it's anticipated that your department's gonna be working on trying to clean that up. Do you think you're gonna be able to get
That is, I'm well aware of the conditions at Tyler Mill and other areas, but I can tell you, unless I'm instructed otherwise, I need to get some roads paved in this town. I can't spend the whole summer moving trees and brush. We really need to start addressing roads. We have over $1 million budgeted for our roads. We need to do these things. And I'm a mountain biker myself. I love to ride in Tyler Mill, but we need to set our priorities here.
Oh, no, I agree. I'm just trying to project here. So my understanding is right now Tyler Mill is basically unusable. You can't get through anywhere.
I guess if you want to walk, you can go through it, but you're certainly not going through there on a mountain bike.
Yeah, and even the people that walk are having trouble because they're having to like climb over very large trees that are cross paths.
I'm basically looking at Tyler Mill as a winter project. We can, if we don't have a hard winter, we can put our men in there. We have the right equipment and the experience to clear that place up, but it would be a winter project.
So just, trying to stay within in the budget, if it was a winter project, do you have enough in this next budget that starts 3 weeks from now to tackle that project?
Well, there wouldn't be overtime involved in it. We would, we wouldn't be using the parks. We would have men that personnel we could put in there to start the cleanup
Okay.
without affecting the overtime budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Certainly, Councilor Letourneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Henry, thank you again for the job that you've done and your department has done.
Thank you.
Watching them closely, and I live in the affected area. I'm on the east side of town, so they're doing a great job. A couple of questions that have come up from residents. One is, there's a leaning tree on South Whittlesey that kind of broke the sidewalk and road. And it's a good-sized tree, and it's leaning up against the house.
I believe it's on the house.
It is on the house?
Yeah.
Who, do you take care of that?
It's the
or-
homeowner's responsibility.
Oh, it's the homeowners, okay.
We are only responsible up to the right-of-way.
Okay,
Town's right-of-way. I think if you look at the tree, there's a mark on the tree, a red mark, where
I
the
haven't
town's
been down.
right-of-way ends. So whoever removes a tree would cut it off at that point. We would be responsible for repairing the sidewalk and removing the stump.
okay. And I did notice around town, and especially up my way, there's a couple of big stumps that have come out of the ground, and they're kind of leaning over, and there's a red T on it, so I'm assuming the town at
That's
some
town,
point
yes.
will come
Yeah,
back.
we
and-
would look to, again, cut them off at the town right away and try and place the stump back in the hole. Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
Well, it's, to excavate them and then hire contractors to dispose of them, chip them up, et cetera. It's better to leave them in place if we can.
Yeah, some of them are huge.
Yeah.
And the other one is, so what happens, I know Tyler Mill and the use it gets and all, but the other one that seemed to get a lot of damage was, if I'm gonna say it correctly, Pyre
Park.
So what happens with that? Does that come out of your budget, John, or is that, who cleans that up?
Well, right now, the electric division is assisting. They had some extra funds, and Asplund has started working for John
Oh, good.
in a couple of parks, and eventually we'll get to Pyre Park. Pyre Park may have to wait to the winter, too.
Okay. Yeah, I had a couple of residents ask me that live in the area, that,
The park was devastated.
yeah, it was amazing, the amount of trees.
It's going
that
to take
came
weeks
down.
to clean that park up.
Yeah.
John Gorlak, Director of Parks and Rec. Pyre Park probably should get done in about 2 weeks, maybe sooner.
Good, good.
the Asplund crew is, we're on our third location, and we have 3 more to go before we get to Pyre Park. Saving that for last, knowing that it's probably gonna take a week and a half to get rid of everything.
Good, thank you. Thank you for the update. And lastly, Henry, I appreciate you starting in the least affected area first and coming into the worst area last, because it let us, I have a pile in the front of my house that is just amazing, and my wife said, where'd it come from? And it was 2 trees, but they were big trees, and we put it out there, and I definitely couldn't have gotten it done in a couple of days' time. So it was good that you started, like you said, in the least affected area and worked up to our way.
Actually, it wasn't my idea, it was the foreman's, Steve Plurmo's idea to do that, and it's worked out very well.
Yeah, it really has. It's allowed everybody in the neighborhoods to.
Public has been very patient. It's not a good time to be the tree warden, but the public has been very patient.
Well, thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Councilor Testa?
Thank you. Hi, Henry.
Actually,
Councilor Turno actually brought up the issue that I wanted to ask you about, and that was that tree that he said Whittlesey Avenue appears to be on the corner of Union Street.
yes.
I'm sure you're familiar with what I'm talking about. Could we just dig a little deeper and just clarify the issues that come into play with something like this?
Well, if that tree was owned by that property owner, it was on his property, and it fell across the road, Public Works has to clean it up. And we would cut it back to the town right away. In essence, if I make any attempt to go after that tree, the town is working on private property. And we don't do that.
You don't do that because of, as a
In
matter
these
of, as a
situations-
matter of practice? Or as a matter of law?
I'm not a lawyer, and I just know.
No, I mean, is it because the town has been advised, don't do that because you could damage the home, or someone could get hurt, or whatever? Or is it just a matter of practice that if it's on private property, we just don't touch it?
Correct.
Correct what? It's a matter of practice?
It's a practice in my department. No, we don't go on private property.
Okay, was the tree in question, on town-owned property when it was,
Yes, yeah.
when it was standing up?
Yep, it was between the sidewalk and the curb.
Okay. So we would be responsible for maintaining it if
Yes,
something was wrong with the tree?
that's correct.
Okay. But it fell on this person's property, on their house, because it's now against their house, which is private property, we won't address it.
That's correct.
I'm not sure I'm happy with that policy. That's why I'm asking for a clarification as to, is it just because of the way we've always done it? So, to your best of your knowledge or recollection, has the law department ever said, don't do that because ...
I brought this up with the law department, and it's,
When?
it was
Like in the past, or
when
about this?
the tree fell on.
Oh, in this particular
Yeah,
instance?
in this particular instance, yes.
So the law department said that is it?
It's a homeowner's responsibility.
Was it a matter of concern about, only reason I'm asking this because there was obviously a major discussion about this within the public. I'm sure it might come up at other times. It's always good to have an understanding as a public official of what the town's policy is, so when people come to us and say, can you help? We have an understanding of, why we may not be able to. And I'm curious, did the law department feel that it would set a precedent
Well,
that we don't want to get involved in because of economic concerns? Or was it a matter of, if you go and remove the tree, and then all of a sudden,
then
it moves and damages the house more, are we responsible
Yeah.
for the damage to the house?
I don't know, but you could look at it this way. If that same tree fell in an individual's backyard, would we go in there and clear that tree up?
Well, if it wasn't our tree, of course not. It's our tree, though. It's our tree on our town property.
It's not on our property.
Well, you said it was. When it was standing
Yeah,
up, it
it's
was.
our tree that fell on private property and we don't clean up
Mr.
those
Chairman,
trees.
Maybe the law department can help.
the trees falling have always been considered acts of God. They don't create liability unless it can be shown that the tree was on property and the property owner was aware that it was in bad condition, it was rotted, he had been on notice. Otherwise, it's just an act of God. It doesn't create liability. We don't have to go onto people's property, and we shouldn't. It's private property. Even though they want to invite us on, we don't accept the liability of it. Nor, if you had a tree on your property and it fell and hit the neighbor's house, you wouldn't be liable either.
I'm not liable.
Right.
Unless somebody could show there was a history established of the tree being in bad shape and
Right.
not having been addressed by the owner of the tree prior to the event.
That's correct.
Is that kind of the precedent that we follow?
Yes.
It's important. I just want to understand that.
That is the precedent that I recommend to my clients, and I would recommend the same thing to the town, and town does follow that principle.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Councilor Fishbein.
I was gonna ask. Okay, thank you. FEMA, there's questions about FEMA coming in with money for this stuff, is what I've heard. So I guess to the mayor, what happens if, I mean, are we trying to get FEMA money? What do we do with it? That kind of stuff.
FEMA visited, I believe, today. They toured the town. They're in the process of making a determination if it meets a disaster threshold. If it meets that threshold, then they would be making judgments as to what money will be available. I think at the point we assessed what our damages were, it was something over $1 million. Most of that was electric, the electric division. But we will have to wait and see, and typically we wait a while to receive a check as well. So it's all in the formative stages.
So just, talking about the accounting portion of that, we have through these two items, $100,000 in overtime that we could directly attribute to the storm. So let's say we get $1 million and, 900,000 of it is electric division. I understand where that goes. We would get $100,000 in next fiscal year. For accounting purposes, we wouldn't attribute it back. It would be unanticipated new revenue. Is that how we would treat it?
This is really a question for Jim Bowes, but I believe it would be unexpected revenue, and it would be received by the town and become part of our fund balance.
Yeah, it would go to the general, like the reserves, because it isn't appropriated to a line. We probably accept it.
It wouldn't be appropriated to anything unless it was brought to the council.
Yeah, okay.
It would just become part of fund balance.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
Today, just to add to the mayor, FEMA was in town today, and we had a group went to look at private homes that were damaged, and myself and the electric division, we went on a tour and we showed them the most hard-hit areas: Country Club Road, Long Hill, Patton Road, Halsey. We showed them Pire Park. Just a general feeling for them, and we will be submitting up-to-date overtime costs, equipment costs to them. And apparently, don't quote me on it, it's a New Haven County. They don't just count Wallingford. It's all the towns together to reach a certain dollar amount before you can be considered. So I thought today went very well. We had lots of photographs to show them, and just have to wait and see what happens.
Questions or comments from the public? Mr. Liu?
Thank you, Mr. Simone. Jared Liu, 59 Curtis Avenue. I don't know this tree that's referenced. Clearly have to drive by and inspect it. But I did want to follow up on the act of God comment, because when the whole issue was happening with the downtown trees, one of the things that the commission, and we were a volunteer commission, nothing town appointed, but one of the things that we had highlighted to the mayor was there's a real liability potentially coming to the town in the case of some of the trees, or all of the trees that were being planted downtown. They were clearly being planted incorrectly in a way that was going to encourage root rot, in a way that was going to kill off the trees, shorten its lifespan, make the trees weak. And we had highlighted to the mayor that there was a strong possibility that some of those trees would not only drop limbs on cars, people passing by, but likely would get blown over in a storm. And so I think when you refer to an act of God, I think the homeowner sounds like is potentially in their right to see was the tree planted correctly, and there may be a liability to the town, there may be a liability to the contractor the town hired out to, but I believe that it's my feeling that the town is asleep at the wheel when it comes to supervising the work that is done by the contractors, so that when we're looking at this issue, it really is an act of God as opposed to something that we have the sort of the authority to supervise for. Again, I don't know this tree, but my concern here would be, maybe the town should go in and actually take care of it before it causes additional damage, because as the issue mounts, there could be the concern that the homeowner would be under increasing pressure to come back at the town to say, or to push a lawsuit forward to say, hey, maybe this is the town's issue. So it may be actually a best practice for the town to go in before this actually builds. But I just wanted to highlight that we actually did highlight for the town that there's a potential liability and that they're not monitoring the way that trees are planted and cared for correctly.
Anyone else? There being none, I bring it back to the council. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sorry about that. Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Letourneau,
Yes.
Marone,
Yes.
Morgenstein,
Yes.
Shortell,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Chairman Cervoni.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your department's hard work, Mr. McCauley. All right, back onto the agenda. Item 9, discussion regarding the community pool survey. Thank you for choosing that seat.
You're welcome.
If you could just remind us who you are for the record, please.
Sure. Good evening. John Golak, Director of Parks and Recreation.
And Dave Gilo, Chairman of the Park and Rec Commission.
Councilor Shortell, did you want to begin?
I would. Thank you, Chairman Cervoni.
Certainly.
Thank you both for being here. Hopefully this won't take long. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Just some context for this. The council received an email about 2 weeks ago about a survey that was going to be done, and our feedback was solicited. We've kind of had a civics lesson in the last few weeks on when the council can do things. In this case, we were asked. Just want to be clear on that. And I had some concerns with the survey, some of which you and I resolved on the phone, which I want to talk about, which I was really happy to hear about. My initial concern was that a lot of great work's going on with this commission, and I was worried that the survey was going to kind of grind that to a halt, that we were going to kind of wait, and that's not the case. Can you just speak to that briefly?
Sure. So the commission, the committee wanted to do a survey so that we could allow the public an opportunity to view some questions that we need for programs, facility, to help us with the design of a potential new aquatics facility. So in addition to the survey, we are also recently went out to request quotes for the design services for this new facility, which we have obtained recently. And I'm going to share with the commission tomorrow, when we have our regular monthly commission meeting, the results of that request for quotes, and hopefully select one of the architectural firms so that we can come up with a design and probable cost within the next 2 to 3 months and come back to the council and share that information with you and the mayor and decide, what is going to be the direction of community pool.
That's great, and that's kind of where I want to start too, is I want to just thank you and thank what you're doing, thank that pool committee. I want to thank the mayor as well, because really there's an argument here that this didn't have to proceed. You could have looked at the numbers and said, we can't do this, and you may still do that down the road. I get that, but I appreciate that this process is going forward. I think that's great. So I like that we're making an informed decision, and I think it's awesome to get public input.
You have been receiving all the minutes.
Oh yeah,
correct? Okay.
So. Yeah, and I got several of them. Yeah, a lot of them came in after the survey feedback request. Mayor, I just have a question for you about this survey. I know you don't like to speculate. I'm not going to ask you to speculate. I wouldn't do that to you. I just want to know, though, as we move through this process and you get the results, like how much weight do you think you're going to give the survey results? I mean, as you look at everything?
It's difficult to say. I think the more returns we get, I guess the heavier weight it would receive. If we don't get many back, then of course that could go to, well, there isn't much interest, but it's hard to judge. I just think the survey is an effort to let people know. Obviously it will be an expensive project, and give everyone a chance to weigh in on what they'd like to see, because the Recreation Commission, I think, is looking at some changes in the activities and the opportunities that will be available should we move ahead with this. So it's a piece of information that should be there. How much weight ultimately becomes an estimate of that we all go through. How many people really want this, and what's the cost, and what's the operational cost as well every year. So,
right.
I don't know if that helps. But.
Yeah, it's exactly how I would look at it. I would look at it exactly the same way. It depends on how much of a response you get. I think I work in marketing. There's no easy way to do a survey. The way you're doing it, I have some concerns, but I also see some benefits. I think, you're talking about putting it in the electric bill. It's going to be a paper survey, like an insert, and people would fill it out. And then and I think on the good side, one of the things we face in marketing is that, people just toss junk mail. They don't even open it. So you have to open your electric bill. People are going to see the survey. Now the question is, are they going to take the time to actually fill it out? So I think that you may get a higher response in that instance. One of the concerns I have is it's household based. So when I think about how these results come in, so let's say, I'm just going to pick on Councilor Zandri's house gets one and Councilor Marone's house gets one, and Zandri and Marone I'm making this up, you're all for the survey, and so there's what, Joe, you have like 9 kids, and Jason has like 10. No, but there's 6 people in Jason's household, there's 5 people in Joe's house. That's 11 people who would be, for the pool, but you're going to get 2 votes. When the survey comes in, that's 2 affirmative votes. And then let's say 2 more surveys go to Chairman Cervone's house and Councilor Fishbein's house, and they both vote no. They actually agree, which is kind of shocking. And so, sorry, I'm having too much fun with this. But there's 4 people in those households. But in the survey result, it's 2 to 2. It's 50-50 because we base this on a household vote, when in reality it's 11-4. And I know people may argue, well, in an election kids don't vote. But the difference here is that the number of people is part of the equation because you're looking at potential pool passes. So all those people, those kids under 18, they do count in this. So I don't know how you get around that. If you add a question in the survey, how big is your household, how many pool passes? That might be one thing that I thought of, but that's just one concern I have, is that it seems like the survey is designed to undercount, not intentionally, but it seems like it's designed to kind of potentially undercount the support for the pool. Another example is, what if you get a household where, you have a husband and wife who don't agree? How does that vote come in? Someone's got to, they only get one vote.
But I don't think, the committee's not looking at it that way. That may be other people's, intentions or their interpretations, but we're looking at it so that we have a facility now, we want to improve it, whether it's new or it's revised or repurposed or whatever. The questions that we're asking are to help that new future facility. So we're not looking at it as it's a win or it's a loss. It's what can we all live with for a program and an operation.
In terms of the numbers issue, the critical thing here is who will see to it that whatever the pool pass costs will get paid, and will they show up? That's typically going to be the parents. The parents.
Yeah.
So that becomes.
No, I agree.
It's a factor, but I agree with John. I mean, how much of a factor becomes ultimately a guesstimate on all our parts?
Yep. Again, I do wish it was online, only to the extent that I think, and again, I do this for a living, and I know when you send out an online survey, you get a successful online email campaign, 23% open rate is successful, which isn't great. That means that 7 out of 10 people don't even read it. So I think I hope you get a better response on paper. I just think about the ease of the response. I think about those working parents who, driving their kids to practice all day, every day, 5 days a week. It'd be easy just to sort of sit there. I know I sit through practices just to do it on your phone. But again, there's pluses and minuses to both. I don't want to get hung up on that.
I'm thinking about my office staff who has to tabulate it.
Okay, that's my last question. And again, I'm not trying to be difficult here. So there's a signature line in this survey. So if somebody doesn't sign the survey, are we going to still count it?
I think we need people to identify. We want Wallingford residents.
Right.
And we need some verification. So to stuff the ballot box with just sending out unsigned is just, we're interested in knowing that someone is serious about it. They're really interested, and that would mean a name and an address, and then we can verify that, this is someone who takes it seriously and would truly be interested in either using it or not. But there's responsibilities on all parties here. And as you know, you get into the online and it's an IP address, and good luck with finding where that is.
No, you get someone like, Craig's going to sit there for 6 hours hitting no, and it's going to, I get that. It's a lot of work on you. I feel bad for your department, but, okay, this is what we're going to do. I just want to.
We're anxious to get it going so that as we start working with this architect to formulate the concept, at some point we can provide him or her with that information that may help formulate the program for this facility.
Right. Well, again, I think part of my intention of putting this on the agenda was to call attention to it with the public, so the public knows about this. I know they're going to get their electric bill, so I hope we get 10,000 responses, and I hope that people fill it out, and I hope we get whatever the feedback is. I hope we get great feedback.
And we will make an effort to publicize that the survey is coming out. You'll get it this month, whatever, and be sure and fill it out.
It's going to cost us about $335 to do. It's 25,000 copies, 50 reams of paper. At the Wallingford bid price, it's $135. And then we're going to be going for the photocopying and folding to be done by the Board of Ed business office, which the charge will be $200. Other than that, the UPS store in Wallingford is $1,000, and they won't accept our paper. And Staples is $2,000, and they also use their paper. Versus an online study option, which would be $8.
Right. Well, again, you're doing it, it's gonna be a lot of work for you and a little more onerous. There's pluses and minuses to both. Because I actually somewhat agree with the mayor that you do it online, your data may not be as good, and again, I've been wrestling with this for a week as a marketer, because I dream from a direct marketing perspective of like what you're able to do with the electric bill, because it's a captive audience. So that's why that to me is the part where you may get a really good response. I hope you do. So
To use a tax bill, it would cost there's an insert fee with the tax bill, $1,500.
Wow, okay.
Electric division, there's not a fee, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, thank you for all your work. I know that this really was more, I know this wasn't really a big update. This was just a checkpoint in the process. I know the big update comes in the fall, and
We're hoping sooner.
We're hoping, okay, well, you're moving really fast. And again, I encourage people to fill out the survey. If you're passionate about the pool, about that property, please fill it out, and we'll move on from there. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Councilor Testa.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Well, for starters, I can appreciate the fact that you are working on something, you have spent a lot of time on it, and it can be frustrating to then come here and then have everybody second guess you and come up with all these better ideas. But that's what we do. That's our job. I have a couple of questions or concerns. When this has been talked about over the last few years, there have been, it appears to me, recurring questions or issues that pop up. Should the pool be open to outside residents? How long is the pool open? What are you willing to pay? Those types of things. It didn't seem like all of those questions are necessarily addressed. That's one thing, because it was kind of something that we'd want to know about when we talked about why there might be issues or why there may not be issues and so forth. I personally have an issue with this not being an online survey, just straight out. We talked about this a few months back, and I said, just do a survey monkey. I get those all the time at work. I get those all the time. I could write one today. Wouldn't be as good as this. But my point is, it's very easy to set up. And the reason why it is so, I think they're so valuable, well, for starters, the tabulation. If you said you're putting out how many thousand of these, if lightning struck, we got 10,000 of these back, the cost in manpower hours of tabulating these things can go through the roof.
Dave's a volunteer.
For real, that's a lot of time and effort when an online survey is just click results, and there they are for you. And because it's that quick, you can fine tune every little question you want. Then you can spend your valuable time, your educated time, evaluating those results and tweaking them a little bit. So that's why, and I understand and appreciate Councilor Shortell's comments about how great it is to have a captive audience. But just as you can put the survey in a bill, you can also put a flyer in the bill that says, go to this link. Alert everybody in the captive audience that here's the survey. And all those people that might say, I'm not filling this out and mailing it back or whatever I have to do with it. Oh, there's the link. And you don't even have to type in the link. All it has to say is go to the town's website and look for the link. We're doing it. Let the notice to the people be that the survey is happening. I don't even have to type in the link. That's why I was a little, I just wished that we could have used that option. Every argument that can be made that, well, maybe it's people that aren't that concerned, maybe it's out-of-towners, maybe, how, they don't get our electric bill. If someone's gonna fraudulently submit well, whatever. I just think you'll get so many possible more replies, so much more data you could receive, and then you can spend your time messing around with it. What does it really mean? You can ask every possible question. Because we do need to, I don't see that, we're asking, ask the taxpayers, how do you feel about out-of-town residents using the pool? Good or bad? How do you feel if it means it's gonna keep the pool open? Those are the types of things I would have liked to see asked. Having said all that, I
You still have
love
until Friday to send me those.
what the ideas.
Yeah.
Why, you might go online?
Friday was the reply to get back to, this is just a draft.
Right.
So
Is there an option you're gonna go online with this?
No.
All right, well then, what am I gonna get back to you with?
Well, some of your questions that you.
Oh, no, I see what you're saying, add a
Yeah.
question here or there. Yes, I can reply with that.
Things that we have.
The reason I brought those up is if it was an online survey, it could be much more lengthy, a lot easier to flash through and check off. That's my point. You could have added more questions. I like where you're going with this, totally. I totally appreciate all the work that went into it. It appears to me that, because the only other thing I wondered about is, you've kind of narrowed down the options. It appears that one of the options is not keep the pool as it is and fix it. Doesn't seem to be an option. It's redesign the whole thing with some changes that I think sound great. I assume that was from meetings and discussions and thoughts.
That is correct.
And then if we find a preference, then you'll get into more details about, okay, let's get some designs put together. Let's throw this all around. Sometimes, and this is more a philosophical question, sometimes when we say we're going to survey, we are in some way abdicating our own responsibilities to make these hard decisions. You know, we say, okay, let the community decide. Well, that's why I say, if you're going to let the community decide, then it should be really detailed. Then they have to have all the potential options. We're the ones that are supposed to look at this and say, well, all right, this is the kind of money that's involved, and we're willing to go this far, we're willing to do this and that. I just want to know if we do this, is there a market for it? That's really all we're really supposed to be. When all is said and done, it's our job to make this decision, not the public's job. I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm saying they hired us to do this on their behalf. We just want to know, are there enough people out there that want to use it, continue to use it? How do they feel? You know, the single mothers with the 4 kids, the people that have relatives that come in on the weekends. Are they going to use it? And if they are, what's going to make them use it? Do we just need to extend the season? Does that mean we have to spend a little more money? So on and so forth. Those are the big questions. When we put the question of what kind of design you would like and all that, sometimes I think we're asking too much because we're not giving them enough information to make that decision. But that's that. Finally, you talk about park amenities. Is this the possibility of renovated snack bar or potentially letting food trucks roll in? Those are the type of things, because these are all the things that people have said. Gosh, you let food trucks come in there in the afternoons, you don't have to hire people to run a food stand. You can have that. Are all those things you've talked about?
So we've been working for about 7 or 8 months on this, and I think it's a culmination of, and that's why we wanted to at least be able to get a concept of all the things that we've gathered over the last 7 months, so that we can get an architectural depiction, we can come up with probable costs. And then at that point, there still can be public input and change if we're missing the boat on certain things.
So you think maybe that's the time we start talking about some of the questions I've raised?
Correct.
Okay.
So
all right.
this survey was just to kind of get it going, try to work with the architect to provide a little bit more feedback than what we've been able to give them, and putting together our wish list of things for this particular facility. You know, we're also looking to make it improve the pool, but also improve that parcel of property and make it more relevant so that it's more like a park and not so much just a pool. So I don't really want to get into all of that because I wasn't prepared for that tonight.
I got you.
But, you know, the survey is one, the architectural service, design services to at least get a discussion going and bring it back to you in hopefully September. And then we could have open season on it. Can we do it? Can we afford it? Is it right? Is it wrong? Do we have enough of the different amenities to meet all the different segments of the population? Will they use it?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be attractive enough?
Yeah.
We're getting there.
I got you. Well, after having said all that I said, even if it came across in any way as a criticism, please don't take anything I said as, because in the big picture, this is how we're supposed to do things. I totally appreciate all the work you put into this. We are opening ourselves up for public input. We're not making a decision on it now. We're taking our time, and hopefully we're going to look at all the potential options, and we're going to take this step by step and weigh everything we can. That's the positive of all this. And I didn't want to come across as negative in any way. I want to throw all my thoughts out at you while we're sitting here talking, because we don't have a chance to do that often. So I like where we're going with this. I commend all the work you're putting in on this, and I think the public should at least take some comfort in knowing that this isn't going to be decided at one of your meetings or one meeting here without notice. This is going to be drawn out, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity for discussion and input before a final decision is made. And if that's my interpretation, if that's correct, I'm pretty pleased so far.
We've listened to a lot of things since October when I came, last October, to do the presentation on the history of community pool. And, you know, we've compiled just about everything. We've gone on field trips, we've talked to the people of the Save the Pool Facebook page. Councilor Morgenstein's been coming to some of the meetings. We've been pretty open and candid about where we're going and what direction we'd like to see things. You know, not too many people are using the pool. There's that trend, but I think that what we're proposing will change all that.
I hope so. And, you know, I've gone on record in the past, and I'll go on the record now, and I will go on the record in the future that I will be hard-pressed to approve anything that eliminates that facility from use as a public pool and/or water recreation area. I like where you're going with this, but thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say before this morning, before I picked out my tie, that I did call Councilor Testa and ask him what color his shirt was going to be. So I'm trying to figure out, why are we not doing this online? So let's start with, how much is it costing us to do this by paper?
It'll cost us $335.
Okay. And how much would it cost us to do it online?
So for example, SurveyMonkey bills annually or by month. It's $372 annually, monthly is $31. eSurvey Pro Basic is $100 annually, or just $8.34 a month.
So if you were to do a survey for this one item in 1 month,
it could be $8 or $31.
Okay. Compared to 300 and something.
335, correct.
So why are we not taking, you know, it's Wallingford. Why aren't we taking the cheaper option?
I think you have a very difficult time determining the source of the surveys you're receiving. You get into IP addresses. You can get multiples from any place. I don't know how you track that. And I think we're talking about a lot of money potentially to be spent here, and we need to know from Wallingford residents what they want to see, what would be a good avenue facility for the town. And it shouldn't be only those who are online or able to send multiple copies of something online. It's just too easy to distort.
So are we not going to accept hard copies that are copied?
Well, we need an address, we need a person's name on them, and, that's at the get-go. So if someone makes a copy of one and then fills it out, obviously the people going through it, if it's a photocopy and there's a duplicate somewhere, then one of them gets thrown away. But there needs to be a bona fide about it, otherwise it's a useless effort.
So through the Survey Monkey, I know I've done those. Can't we ask for the person's address?
Again, the question is the bona fide on it.
Okay, so above the address, I'll draft the language. I hereby certify that I, under the penalties of perjury, that I am a resident of the town of Wallingford. How about that? And with a little checkbox, which is the same thing that we would do with a hard copy, I would think, something to that effect. So, I mean, if somebody's willing to check off that box and certify under the penalties of perjury.
But I don't know where perjury comes into this. This just comes in.
Well, you want bona fide, which, I mean.
That's right. And from what I understand, you start dealing with IP addresses, and good luck determining where they're all coming from.
Okay, so I guess this is not a Park and Rec decision, it's an administrative decision.
I discussed it with Park and Rec. I think they're as interested in making an effort to see that we're receiving honest results. And I spoke also with Chris Lucht, our network administrator, and you get into IP addresses, and there's plenty we see in the news and everywhere else about the difficulty of determining the source.
So I'm just, past practice is sometimes helpful. And I hearken back, it was about 4 years ago, we started the Plan of Conservation and Development Committee. And as part of that, we surveyed. And I spent a lot of time putting that survey out to the public. And our paid consultants were very happy with the amount of responses we got. And I thought that information was very helpful in formulating that. And I didn't hear that argument with that, which is, state mandate, probably, maybe to some people, a more important document than what we're talking about here. But we allowed it there. So why wouldn't we at least test the waters, perhaps throw, some of the stuff out? I gotta tell you, I get the survey and the electric bill, I'm probably gonna look for it now. But anything that's in that electric bill, I don't read. And I don't think people are very busy these days. But Survey Monkey, I'm generally lazy with regard to surveys. I'll sit there and go click. We want people to respond. And the cost it's 1/10 of the cost to do online as opposed to paper. I'll pay for it. I mean, if that's, what we're down to here, but this is very important. It's one of the few things that we have in our town that, I look forward to, and it's very important. And I gotta tell you, if we don't take enough information in, and this body makes the decision, it's a referendable decision. So you really want to go down that road and make a decision, and then have a segment of the public that gets out there with petitions and the signs and all of that stuff. We got to spend money on an election. I'd rather get all the information and then deal with it. So if it only costs us $8 to do that on top of the written one, I think I would feel more comfortable. Do both. So I've had my say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Laffin.
Thank you. I wanted to stress that this is an opportunity for participation from everybody. And it's an opportunity to participate, to be involved, and to be heard. This isn't just a case where the decisions are made by just the people that show up. This is a case where quantity matters. Where if we only get 20, then wow, that 20, the voice of that 20 was very loud, but then it might not be worth considering. We need numbers, we need quantity. I'm not gonna get all into the online versus paper thing too heavily. I think it's all kind of been said, and I hope there's still some discussion to be had. I'm not as concerned about the extra $8 or $30 to do it on top of the paper. My concern with cost comes more with the cost of tabulation. The amount of time that your staff will end up having to spend to go through the pages of the survey in order to make it meaningful. Me writing my address on a piece of paper and mailing it back to you, or me typing it onto a computer that's then emailed is literally the same thing. It doesn't matter whether I do it from my home or a computer in the library or IP or anything like that. It's just going to be, we're going to take everybody's word for it anyway. If anything, the electronic version could be easier to cross-reference with an actual electronic list of matching a name with an address. But I'm hoping that there's still discussion to be heard on that. But no matter how it comes out, whether it's paper, online, or both, people need to participate and do this. Everybody got all into a frenzy on Facebook because they thought the pool was closing a couple months ago. And this is the opportunity. I mean, all the minutes are available. I've read all the minutes. They've been talking about this for how long now? I mean, it's been a long time. And people say, well, how come in Wallingford we just let everything, to the last minute and everything falls apart? There's no last minute. This has been going on forever. We have a commission that's been talking about this and watching the pool yearly. At some point, I think every year you guys try and decide whether, and this is it. This is the year that the commission came together and said, let's start to plan for the future. But all that planning is going to be for nothing if people don't participate in this. Thanks. And thank you guys for everything you've done.
Thanks.
Councilor Morgenstein.
Hi, yeah. I came to a couple meetings in March when I was between jobs and had time in my life. You guys have really laid out for a future for this parcel, options that will bring us into the future. I'll just make a really quick comment on the online piece. This town needs to move into the future, and we have young parents who live in that realm, and I think if you use your electric bill account number and you can cross-reference that one account of each electric bill came in, done. We need in this town to stop worrying about things that make no sense. But anyway, so yeah, I would really like to see, there's a link to an online version as well. The parents that are sitting at practice and can just click, 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 click on their phone, get it done. I know myself, the bill comes in the mail, Larry's the one that pays it, the extra papers go who knows where, I never see it. And people are busy, yeah, I don't even see the bill, I just earn the money. So
This is getting
again,
a little personal.
We've got an opportunity here to really make this, as you say, it's a park. It's not just a pool, it's a park. We have a changing building that is unable to be renovated. The food situation between the health department and all of these things. There is no option for just repair as is. It would actually cost more to bring any of those things up to date. So people need to understand that. You have your group put together and, like you say, field trips and gone, and here are some outlays of options. Let's hear from the public, but I don't want to hear well, I'm going to look at it, and if I'll kind of depend on how many people have bothered to reply. I'm scared by that answer because we're actually tying our hands a bit on the numbers that are going to reply. And I had the exact same thought as Councilor Fishbein. The Plan of Conservation and Development, this big document that was done by the town, was done, part of it online, but I'll throw out here, there's another piece that they did that might well be worth you guys considering, whether it's in the parking lot at the pool facility, whether it's at the rec department, at some point, a public, here, the way they did it with the POCD, here's what this looks like, and here's what this looks like, and you make it kind of a fun evening, and we've got a few kids in the audience tonight, and kids could come, and, you have sort of this, nice little gathering that the decision is actually a public thing that is vibrant and alive as well, rather than a dry in a council chambers, bringing it to life. You had at some of your meetings, here's what the material of, the lining of the pool feels like, or this is what this, play thing is like. So we're putting it in your hands. Your hands are tied in some manner. We understand that. Do with this information what we can to bring us a lively park, pool, snacks, destination, and please, let's not let this fear of the internet keep us when we start to figure out how people are going to pay and get their passes, keep us from this pool making the money that it needs to survive. Because if we continue to handicap ourselves from our fear of technology, that's what's going to happen. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just take a look at what's going on the internet and tell me there's so much trust associated with it. Why should we disenfranchise everyone in town who is not on the internet and say you can't vote? Those people should be able to vote as well. So the medium shouldn't be the message. The question here is who is really interested in a pool? There's an opportunity to make your voice known.
Both ways. We should allow it to be both.
But we should not set this up in a way that only those who are interested in the pool respond. This is for anyone because everyone in town will be part of paying for it. It's estimated at $4 to $5 million at this point. That's a serious amount of money in today's economy when all we hear about is the deterioration of Connecticut's economy. We wrestle over what our budget should be. This could very possibly be an increase in an operational cost. Everyone should be aware of that. Whether you like to be on the internet or not, you should be aware of this and make your voice known. I find it ironic that in today's world, we have more requests, the mayor's office, more requests for banners over the street than ever before. Because there's so much information out there, people lose track. So those who want to attract someone to an event, they want a banner across the street to let people know. More than ever before, and it keeps escalating.
Councilor Shortell. No, I just wanted to kind of go off something Councilor Testa said. Just at the end of the day, it is a decision that we have to make, and so but I think the mayor is entirely right to say the sample size will determine the weight he gives the survey. I think that is completely logical, and anyone would say that looking at a survey. I will tell you, as a single councilor up here, as one of 9, I will give the survey its due. I have opinions on this. I want to see the pool redone. I love what you guys are doing. I love the direction it's going in. You looked at Trumbull. I've read your minutes. That's what I want. That's what I'm going to vote for. That's what I'm going to advocate for up here as one of 9. And frankly, the survey could come in 10,000 to 1, because I have the 1 vote, against doing a pool. I would still advocate for that. So that's my own opinion as a leader up here, and I agree with Councilor Testa in that we were elected to make those decisions. But I also, I totally agree with the mayor saying he's going to look at the sample size, and that will determine how much weight he gives it. That's how he should look at it. So, at the end of the day, a famous philosopher once said, "Do or do not. There is no try." So, people, it's not going to be on the web. Open your electric bills and take the survey. It's not hard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm surprised you didn't take issue with the fact that Councilor Morgenstein referred to our meetings as dry, because this meeting has been anything but that, particularly in light of your comments. With that, comments from the public. Mr. Liu.
Thanks. Jared Liu, 59 Curtis Avenue. We actually saw this on the agenda, and so my kids just wanted to come down and voice their support. I'm not sure what they're going to say. This is totally unprepared, but they wanted to say some support for community pool. Tell them your name and then say what you want.
Hi, my name is Whitman Liu, and this is my sister Emmy Liu, and this is my sister Rosie Liu. And we really love the community pool, and we really don't want you guys to take it down since it means a lot to us.
We think there's something special.
All right, go sit down. All right, thanks. Thanks. Sort of tongue-in-cheek, come to the defense of the mayor. I think we're right, in this day and age where we can see that the Russians have infiltrated our presidential election, that we could think that their next stop could be, the town of Wallingford, Connecticut's pool survey, and we should be careful about putting this online. But really, what I heard Councilor Morgenstein and several others say is, it's not an either or, it's a both and, right? Like, if the idea is to reach more people, put it online and send it in the mail. You're trying to get more people. As long as this doesn't also come out of the teacher's pay or sick day pay, I'm not sure what that account was that we're robbing the teacher's sick pay from, but this is a reasonable cost if your goal is to get more responses. My concern is actually mostly in line with the same as Councilor Shortell's actually. So, I'm concerned about that we may be making decisions based on a population sample that is not representative. So if we send this out to a broad range of people and we get back whatever we get back, we have no idea if that's relative sample to the population of Wallingford. I think the example is right. You have no idea whether that is relative to the number of families, the number of senior citizens, the number of people from outside of Wallingford. Well, I guess it's not representative of people from outside of Wallingford because you're not sending it to them, but you have no idea what that is representative of. I think if your goal is to make decisions in an extrapolated way based on who responds to the survey, what you do is you selectively choose a certain population to send it to. So, you might take a list and say, every 100th person we send it to them, and then you make sure you get 100% of response. So if your goal is to extrapolate on it, there's a different way to do this. I'm worried that the questions are leading. I'm worried that the questions are misleading. When I look at just even question 1, it asks, did you use the pool in the last 3 years? Well, why not instead just ask a question, which years did you use the pool? Check, 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 check. So instead of leading them into what you want the response to be and having data that's only based on the way you've worded it, you could structure the question differently. I'm not sure what it would cost to get a survey company who would actually help you in a scientific way develop what your survey is to make sure you're getting what you want out of it, but I suspect that might be a good use of funds if we're actually going to be making some pretty major decisions on this. I do want to say, thank you to John and Dave. I think this is admirable that we are going ahead and collecting some information on this. I think every time there is a meeting, people come out. Every time you talk to someone in the community, they tell you how important this is. So I think subjectively, we know this is there, and kudos to them for getting some data that's going to show that this is important. The last thing I'd say is, it really actually kind of concerns me that the only leadership we see on this is one about whether this is online or on paper. I think this is an issue where the mayor needs to step up, say what his position is, help push this forward to really bring the plans to fruition, and really take a stake in what the town is willing to pay, what the value is for us in having this pool, as opposed to really getting concerned about whether this is online or on paper. Really take a leadership position, please.
Anyone else from the public?
My name is Kevin McNamara.
Ma'am, you'll be next. Mr. McNamara.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Golick. First of all, if the survey goes out as a hard copy, will the return envelope be postage paid?
No, it will not.
So that in itself will have some people, will make people reluctant to fill it out and return it. I think it's a good idea. If we're going to do it in a hard copy, we should have a postage paid envelope. I know that there probably are going to be areas where you could drop it off at the Park and Rec or the town hall, but a lot of people don't want to schlep over there. They're just too busy today. I think it would be a great idea if we did a postage paid envelope. And I also go along with the idea that I think we should do the survey online as well as hard copy. It would make it much easier. And there was talk before, it almost sounds to me, as the discussion went around the table, that this is going to be the deciding factor. We're either going to win the election or we're going to lose the election. These are basically, you're just gathering ideas as to what the people think about, what they would like in a revised, in a redone pool. So I don't think there should be too much weight as to, 50% want a splash pad and, 30% don't want this. I think, we should probably try to get just a general consensus as to what people do. And the last thing is, over the past few years, there's been a lot of news or whatever, a lot of information regarding the non-profitability of this pool. And it makes me think, how much money do our ball fields make? How much money does our track make? This is an asset for the town. Now, we have something that a lot of towns around here don't have. And I think we should really, really cherish it for what it is. You spoke about, eventually making it into a nice park, would be a family place. When I moved here, that's what it was. There were picnic tables. There was a huge area out in the back where you could have lunch or just hang out. Little by little, the forest has taken over. I don't know what the cause of that has been, but and every year I go to the pool and I see the same things. There's been not a lot of preventive maintenance done. I know you guys, your hands are full and you're constricted by your budget. But I think that, a lot more thought has to go into this thing. And I think that profit should not be a factor. If we double the cost, fine. A pool pass, I pay $10. If I got to pay $20, I don't care. It's no big deal. I would pay $100 to swim in that pool. I love it that much. Sheehan's pool is closed in the summer. What about the high school swimmers who want to practice? It's a great place. You got a nice lap pool there. You can do laps. These are things that a lot of people don't look at. And for people with young children, it's a great place where mom or dad can sit down and let the kids go into the water and keep an eye on them, and they can kick back and relax a little bit. So these are other factors that need to be taken into consideration, not just whether it makes money or it doesn't make money. I don't think it was when that pool was first envisioned. I don't think it was envisioned as something for the town to make money at, or even to break even. This was something to benefit the residents of the town. And I think that's what it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Patricia Corbett, and I'm at 310 North Main Street, and I absolutely love the swimming pool. I have sent letters in. I have requested that the pool time be extended to June, July, and August. I love to swim. It is great for my health. I'm a senior citizen. There are lots of senior citizens who thrive at the pool. They want to go there. They want it to be open in August. So I'm at the other end of the spectrum from them. But I want to stay healthy. I want to be fit, and I am. And it's because I use the Y and the swimming pool. I'm not a sports fan. I'm an artist. I always have been. And I want to support this pool. It is a special gift to this town. It really is, just as our mayor is and this council. We have the opportunity here to keep this going, and we can use all the ways that are possible. I do everything online. So I know there are a lot of people my age who don't. I try to help them to use the internet. I agree with Mr. Testa and Council Fishbein and the others who say that we can go both ways and don't complicate it, because you're right. If you get it too complicated, that should be our job, your job. They'll shy away from it. I do not read anything on my electric bill or any other bill. I throw it away. So, but if I can do it online, I'll do it with a click. And I think there should be all opportunities, and I think we should really keep the pool. We really should. It's so special, and it's helping our health. You know, it really is. I don't run. I do walk, but I don't play the trumpet, and I can't sing anymore too well. But I want to go to the pool, and I love the Y too. So, and indoor pools, too much chlorine. Too much chlorine, they ruin your hair. So, thank you.
Mr. Gannon.
Mike Gannon, High Street, Wallingford. I know you've been very patient listening to a lot of comments here. I appreciate all the work that John and Dave have done over the years gathering information and possibilities here. I'm a senior citizen, 74. I swim 3 or 4 times a week in the summertime. I love having the pool there. It's a tremendous resource. So I'm hoping, obviously, that we're able to come up with some things to make it a destination, as someone said, and just putting in my vote for keeping it open and doing something good with it. And again, thank you all for the time that you're investing here.
Mr. Hine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jamie Hine, 342 South Elm. First off, John and Dave, I do want to applaud all your efforts. I know you both work very hard. And I like the idea. It's the first time I'm hearing of it, but I really like the idea of making this a destination. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. And I have talked to numerous people, especially when I was out campaigning last year. One of my ideas, and I have mentioned this to so many people, my wife is from Philadelphia. When we go down to visit my in-laws outside Philadelphia, there is a playground out there that we take my son to, and it's a big, huge castle, and a lot of it was donated. But every time we go, there must be 100 kids running through this castle, up and down, and all you hear is kids' laughter, them having fun, parents sitting around watching their kids have a great time. And that is something that, in some respects, I think Wallingford, for as much as it has, that's the one thing that it's really missing, is a destination park. Something that's going to draw people into Wallingford, and something that people are going to really, really respect and appreciate. And so something like this, if you could add a park element to this pool where it's going to draw families in for a full day, you know, it's something that their families, their kids are going to look forward to do on the weekends. That's a no-brainer. If you do something like that, I can guarantee you that families are going to show up there. Their kids could play in the pool, they can play at the park, they can have park benches to eat lunch at. It's a no-brainer. So I just really hope that when you get the results back and you take another look at it, that those results only solidify your idea of making this into a destination or a full park. Thank you.
Sir.
My name is Gil Craig. I live at 310 North Main Street. I'm Patricia's husband. I have one question on the electric bill mailing. Is each bill go to one dwelling, which means that you're only going to get people answering the survey if they own a home or pay that bill? Now, I noticed that in Wallingford, there's multiple dwellings, or one dwelling could be a multiple family. And if it's an upstairs, downstairs situation like our neighbors, the upstairs people are not going to get that survey, but they have kids. And I wonder how we're going to reach that situation. That just crossed my mind. I raised 3 daughters, and all 3 of them were competitive swimmers. We were members of a community pool in South Jersey. Those kids look forward to that competition to learn the swimming, learn the backstroke, learn the breaststroke, learn freestyle, do the relays, and have the swim meets. I don't see that competitive spirit in Wallingford. I would really like to see it. You have it in Little League, you have it in soccer. You could also have it in swimming. You have a pool that has lanes that is competitive. I don't know, it's a 25-yard or 25-meter pool. You can have swim meets, you can train the kids, offer that to them, and you might get more of the younger people interested in the pool. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Morgenstein.
Good evening again, Larry Morgenstein, South Main Street. First off, I'd like to thank John and Dave and everybody else at the pool committee, all the hours and time, all the patience and taking in the input of people. I think that's what really this is all about, is that we're talking about community here. And what you're doing is trying to foster a conversation about an asset that we have that still is serving thousands of people every summer. And I think, again, when we look at how many respondents we get, the number that we do know that's hard is the thousands of people that come out every year to use that pool. So regardless of how many people you get on that survey, you still know that there's, what is it, over 4,000 still, or around 4,000 that came out last summer?
It was 1,900.
1,900. That's still a sizable group. And we know that those numbers have been far more in the past. So we could spend our time bickering back and forth, being acrimonious about how we should do it, but the goal is to gather information. And we do have multiple means of gathering information. You could argue merit for electronic surveys. You could argue merit for the electric bill. Each one serves a purpose, each one has fallbacks. Really what you want is response. How do you lose by having multiple access to as many people as possible. That's really what you want. I know that when my wife and Councilor Fishbein and a lot of other officials did the POCD, they did the Survey Monkey. And the thing is that I think there was over 1,000 respondents that participated, and I know that almost daily Councilor Fishbein or myself or somebody else on the public forums that are Wallingford residents pushed up that thread so people would see that every day, and then people would respond and talk about it. So there's ways of making people aware. That's electronic. With the mailer, that's a good thing too, but the failing with that is that, again, that people point out, will they look at that extra material? When I open that bill, which Gina never sees, of course, I don't look at the extra papers that come in there. I'm sorry to say. I mean, sometimes there's for LED light bulbs and stuff, things that would be valuable. But for the most part, you don't look at the extra material because as a bill payer, I'm looking to pay that bill. So again, I think you have to publicize that. If it's going in the electric bill, you've got to make every effort possible to make sure that people are aware that there's something in that mailer. But then your other problem that Mr. McNamara and I think some others touched on is, are people going to return it? Are people going to put a stamp on it? Is there an opportunity to bring that to recreation, Parks and Rec? Can people drop off there? Can we have something at Town Hall? Could we have multiple drop-offs? What are we going to do to foster responses? And that's the thing. We could fight about it, but the fact is that what we really want is to figure out ways to get people to respond. That's what you want. You want response. You want information from people. So rather about bickering back and forth, let's do a little bit of all the above and think about how could we make every method effective to get the most out of this. There's almost unanimous opinion here that this is something special. This is something that's special to this community. Can we stop with the nonsense of going back and forth and just concentrate on trying to do this right? It's costly, but it's also something that brings so much to this community. I'm really kind of tired of coming here and hearing some of this stuff. There's a goal here, and there's something higher here that you're trying to do. And I hope that everybody aspires to that.
All right. Seeing no further hands, thank you for this report. Thank you for engaging the council and the public, and we will look forward to seeing the results of what you do.
Hopefully in September.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. On to item 10. Councilor Morone, do you want to talk about this?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, I've gone through 3 budgets with the council, and one of the things I noted, and I brought this up a couple of times before, is that we spent a lot of time during budget season talking about things that really have nothing to do with the budget. The John Street Bridge, things that the police do in terms of law enforcement, which really have nothing at all to do with the budget. And I think part of the reason why our discussion is so diffuse is that we spend so little time talking about the budget. And in many ways, the charter sets down a system for us to look at the budget whereby we're not required to do anything until the mayor delivers us the budget, and then we spend a lot of time talking about things that don't really have anything to do with budgeting. So, I said, what's the root cause of this whole problem? And I think the root cause is that there's no goals, there's no discussion about what we're looking for prior to the budget. So my thought was that we would just, not tonight, but at a point in the future, we would sit down and the administration could tell us what their budgetary goals are, and we could perhaps have some goals of our own and talk about what we're looking for. 0% budget was something that came up a lot this year. 0% is it's a fun item, but it's kind of a unicorn because you can only do 0% so many times because we know there's fixed costs. So if the feeling of the council is that the budget is bloated, and I think some can make, I'm not saying that it is, but I'm saying you can certainly make that argument, then perhaps the issue's not the 0% budget, but it would be shoring up the budget so that there's less bloat, or we felt that there was less waste. We find lots of examples where there's items that are over budgeted. Tonight we did a transfer from an account to pay for overtime. We did the same type of transfer at the last meeting. So those were accounts that the administration was confident in, we weren't gonna need the money. So you get back into the discussion of, you know, is that really an honest budget, or is there perhaps a little extra fat there to trim? So what I wanna hear from the other council people is just what are your goals? If 0% is the goal, then that would be, you know, then that's a goal, or maybe padding the surplus is a goal. But I'm curious from everyone else what your goals are, and I think we should set some time aside to talk about that. So my thought was, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, my thought was that we should put this at the end of another meeting so that we get decent attendance. And then at least when we get to the end of the budget season, you know, if we can't come to what we thought was, if we can't meet our goals or at least make progress towards our goals, then you have a reason to vote no. Otherwise, you know, at the 11th hour, we were all over the place on the budget, some voting no, some voting yes, and I'm not entirely clear why many people voted the way that they voted. So I don't think we should ever have a situation where we get to a point where I don't understand why it is that the other 8 voted the way that they voted, you know, for something that's essentially one of the major functions of this body. That's it. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
With that, if your idea is, well, as I understand your idea, we set a special workshop meeting to occur after one of the upcoming council meetings. Is your pleasure the July meeting, the August meeting? I guess I want to hear from people about their schedules for the upcoming meetings then.
Mr. Chairman, I would just, July meeting, we're looking at having a special ordinance meeting immediately following, so I would at least steer away from that one if possible, as we have a couple things on that agenda.
Okay.
Well, no, yeah, we still have another June meeting.
That's true, but I know Councilor Shortell won't be at that meeting.
I won't be there.
Well, there's 2.
I don't know that I'll be in August. Why don't we do it September?
Why don't we do a Survey Monkey?
Councilor Letourneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it'd be good to bring it up in the fall, either maybe the second meeting in September, because then everybody's back from vacation and we're ready to work.
Certainly gives us enough time to make sure that we make that meeting. Does that work, Councilor Morone? Okay, so we will plan to have a special meeting, workshop after the regular meeting in September. The second.
September 25th?
Yes.
Oh, great, on my birthday. Thanks.
There you go.
We'll have to be there.
We'll celebrate for you.
Alrighty.
It's not an excuse to skip.
All right, thank you. With that, there is, Mayor, you don't have anything for the last item, right? There's no further business on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, I declare this meeting adjourned.